Hello. Not you. Emma's saying, very confused. You can see Mario Kart behind us. See what you're missing tonight, guys? And so we are continuing talking about. I'll turn this light off behind me. Looking at friendships was our thing. And there is a main. There we go. What? What? Emma's very confused. Come here. You want to say hi? Come here. Come here. Come say hi. Are you very confused? She keeps jumping back and forth. Come here. Come here. Come here. Okay, fine. Anyway, so we were talking about like friendships and stuff like that. This will not be very long today because it's just the example that I really wanted to hit home was what does healthy friendships look like? And I don't know about you guys, but I was telling people like last few weeks and stuff like that. You guys have seen Boy Meets World.
Yes.
Okay. And so one thing when I think of friendship, I grew up with like the Boy Meets World mindset or like Malcolm in the Middle or any of these other shows. And they have like, when you think of friends, you think of like this one person maybe who's like your best friend who, you know, knows you inside and out and stuff like that. You see it in every show, like Psych. Have you guys seen Psych with, you haven't seen Psych? Okay. If he's like Scrubs or any show like that, there's always like the best friend character. Yeah. And I realized that doesn't like, well, maybe it happens for some people. It's never happened for me. Like I don't have just like one best friend who just knows everything about me and, you know, all of that. I found that for me, when it comes to friends, I tend to get like them split across several people. So I have like John, who's one of my best friends, but we don't relate on like everything together. I have Corey, who's another one of my friends. I have Drew, who's another one of my friends, and they all like relate differently. And so I tried to stop putting stock. Like when I was in high school, I thought, well, I don't really have that one best friend that, you know, all of these TV shows and movies have told me about. So maybe when I get to college, you know, I'll have a best friend because like I've talked to a lot of people and they're like, yeah, my college roommate's like my best friend. You know, he was my best man in my wedding and, you know, we see each other all the time. Now our kids are playing together and I'm just like, that's cool. Yeah, it didn't happen. I got to college and I realized that the friends I had in high school were actually a whole lot better than my friends in college. Not because my friends in college were bad, but like I had already built those relationships with people in high school. So, say all that to say, there is an example in the Bible of what friendship should look like, and there are just 4 little things in it. So you guys remember who David is, right?
Yeah.
David in the Bible, okay. Big king guy, killed a guy with a stone right through the forehead. Okay. So, once he had done that, like once he had killed Goliath, he takes the sword, cuts off Goliath's head, carries the head around for a while, presents it to Saul, and Saul's like, I like you. You're going to move in with me. You're going to be the next king kind of thing. And so he moves in and he meets Jonathan, who's Saul's son. And we don't really know how close they were in age or how far apart they were in age. Some people think that Jonathan was like older, like probably in his 30s, and then David was like probably in his teen years. Some people, and like, so they're not really sure how that works. Some people think that they are like really close together in age, like they were teenagers hanging out in the palace together. But anyway, either way, we'll just go off the concept they were probably teenagers because we don't really know exactly. It doesn't say like, and Jonathan was blah 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 years old. But it says here, when David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as he loved himself. And from that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return to his father's house. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he had loved him. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic, his sword, his bow, and his belt. And so, like, we see this little glimpse into their friendship. And their friendship, like, if you read the rest of it, goes on all the way up till death. Like, unfortunately, Jonathan dies in battle, and David has to bury his best friend. But, like, Jonathan multiple times protects him from just danger and throughout it. But this is, like, the first thing we see in there. And what it means is, like, I'm going to be honest. Some people use this passage to be like, oh, David and Jonathan were gay lovers. It's like, no, that's not what when it says that he loved him as he loved himself, that doesn't mean, like, in love with him. It's just that he would be willing to lay down his life for his best friend. And that's shown in the example that he gave. So So they became one in spirit, which they did like everything together. And he gave David five things, five things. I can count. First thing he did is he took off his outer robe. So you have to know about the attire back then. You probably have seen it in movies like Passion of the Christ. They had like they called it the belt, which was an undergarment that like held the whole wardrobe together. Then you had your outer tunic, and then you had your outer robe. And then so what they would do is they would take off their outer. He took off his outer robe, which is like the equivalent today of if you're dressing up in like a suit and tie, like taking off your suit jacket and like unbuttoning your button and loosening up your tie. That's kind of the equivalent of taking off your outer robe. So the symbolism behind that is that Jonathan felt comfortable enough with David that he was able to like relax. So when you're with your best friends, one of the things you want to make sure is that you feel relaxed around them, enough that you can just kick back, play some games, play Mario Kart, things like that. Just make them feel welcome and connected. And so that's the outer robe. Second thing is then he gave that to David. So like he's basically saying, I feel comfortable in your presence. Then he gave him his tunic. And so like that was something that's even more personal. Like at this point, you're starting to feel a little more exposed. So it was like he took off his shirt and gave it to him and said, here, you can have my shirt. Which that's a little like, in our world today, if someone came up to you and just took off their shirt and gave it to you, you'd be like, thanks, bro. You can keep it. Put it back on, please. No one wants to see that. Like, but back then it was very symbolic. He's basically saying that I'm giving you and letting you see like a part of me that no one else has seen. For example, you could see like scars on somebody, or if they have some weird birthmark, or like a third nipple or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like the secret things that only a few people in your world have seen. And so taking off your tunic is kind of symbolic of if you're going to be a good friend with somebody, you are willing to share something that's a little more personal with you or with them. Like you're sharing a little more of your secrets. With that, as David, he had the responsibility of being a good friend to not make fun of him or treat him, be like, oh my gosh, dude, you got a third nipple, to give him some respect, to be like, hey man, I understand that you are trusting me with some of your secrets. Then the next thing, so he gives him his robe, his tunic, which is symbolism for like being more open, and then he gives him his sword and his bow. Both are weapons that can kill you in the right hand. So to literally for today, it would be like, you're sharing something with somebody and then you like give them a firearm. Be like, oh yeah, here's my conceal and carry gun, by the way. But like what that symbolizes means he is actually giving, like Jonathan is actually giving David the means in order to hurt him. Like he has given some kind of like secret information or like something about himself that's very personal, that if it were to get out there, it would harm him. Like it would harm his character. And so like that's when it comes to friendship, you want to get to the point of trusting somebody so much that you're willing to give them a part of yourself that were that to get out, people would change their opinion of you. The danger a lot of people get into, and this isn't just for friendships, this is also for relationships. I've seen it a lot with girls. They tend to like go straight from, oh, hey, you're my best friend, to, oh my gosh, I have this biggest, darkest secret. It's like, whoa. And that's the part of when it comes to friendship, you develop boundaries with somebody to where you notice there are levels of like entering into a friendship. You don't just go from like, oh, hey, I'm going to be a comfortable around you, to, oh my gosh, here's my biggest, darkest secret. You got to build up to that over time. And at the same time, you have to trust, like you have to keep that information secret to yourself and not use that information to hurt them. And then the last thing he does, and this is like the most intimate level, is you have his belt. And so like this is awkward because back then things were a little different socially than they were today. He literally like takes off like his undergarments and is like, here you go. And you're just like today we'd be like but like back then it was symbolic. Like David talks about how once he's older and he's a king, he literally like rips off his clothes and is just like dancing naked in the streets because he's so happy. Not something you want to do today, and not saying that you should do this to your friends. Please don't. But the symbolism behind that is he gets to the point in his friendship with his best friend that he is like completely and totally exposed. Like he's completely vulnerable to where he's talking about stuff that he's worried about, things that he's scared about, things that like you don't generally want to talk to other people about, but you trust that other person enough to where you can start to feel those things, and the other person knows that and is not going to make fun of you for it, not going to try to use that against you, hold it against you. Like that's the ultimate level of friendship. And next week I want to talk about like your spheres of influence. This would be like your centermost sphere of influence. Like you don't
target,
right? Like the target, like we've talked about that I think before. But like, you know, your circle of acquaintances, your friendships and stuff like that. You can get to the level of like being comfortable with them, inviting over to your house, play some games and stuff like that. But you may not get closer with them. But like your friends, ones you hang out with probably every day. Come here, baby. Come here. You're fine. When you come here, here, come say hi to the camera. Come say hi to the camera. Yeah. Tell them hi. Oh no, you smell the pizza, don't you? Mm-hmm. Yes, I thought so. But like your friends who you hang out with every day, you're probably at the point where maybe they might even have some methods or some secrets that they can hold against you, some kind of weapon. But your circle of intimacy is reserved for only a few people in your life, and they know like all of you. And I think some people today, no, she's fine. I think some people today, we forget how to form those connections and relationships, and we go from like 0 to 100, and then we get burned because we went too fast, and then we're like, oh, I can't trust anyone anymore. Or we don't really know what to share. We're too nervous to share it with someone. But part of being a friend is taking that risk and like building up to that point. And like once you start getting real connections with people and start getting vulnerable and really talking to them about what's going on in your world, that's when you start really feeling like you're not so alone. You start working through problems in your life that you're dealing with. I mean, like John and I, we've known each other forever. We joke that we're an old married couple now because like that's where we're at. Right, honey? Can't even hear me.
Sorry, what?
You never listen to me, dear. No, I was telling them how like we've known each other for so long. It's almost like we're an old married couple now.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, see, it's just because like we've gotten to the point where we've worked through a lot of it, and part of what happens naturally in a friendship is when you give somebody the tools by to hurt you, like a sword, they're going to cut you. They're going to make mistakes, and you have to be willing to work through that as well. So, but that's really like the thing for today. We talked a little more about, I think the last one we'll wrap up with is the circle of influence and how you move people in and out of that circle. See, there's the circles right there. Here, you can see it in my notes. See? But that's what we'll end it with next time. But when you think about that with friends, just think about like the idea of where are you at with them and what can you share with them and what are they hold, like what can, you know, I think sometimes we, especially with guys, like for us guys, we get so like we have to be macho men for some reason and we can't actually talk about real life things, which is I think the stupidest thing in the world. Because like guys don't talk about that. It's like I'm not telling you to be all emotional, be like, oh my gosh, you would not believe that movie that I saw was just like, I'm not saying that, but like talk about things that are real, you know, things that you're worried about, things that you're nervous about. Whoa, you gonna get it? Okay, she loves tissues. So that's it. That's our little lesson thing for today. We will pray, and if you guys, I'm telling people online now. Hi, people online. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, you can let me know. If you don't feel comfortable commenting, just find me on Facebook and connect with me there. But because I know there's some people who watch this at home for our crowded home. But anyway, questions, thoughts, concerns, stress, no stress. All right, let's pray then. God, just thank you that you've given us your word as an example, that we can look to it, even for something as simple as friendship, things we take for granted. And we think that, like, friendships just happen and they're so natural. Why do we need to learn about it? But I know for myself, it's like hearing it broken down kind of helps me recenter and refocus on that. So God, this week help us to see where we are as friends, and to see and evaluate where we're at with our own friends, and to see what we can do to be even better friends. And if we've messed up, God, I just pray that you'll show us where we've messed up, and that we can go back and try to fix it. And so, God, we love you. We thank you, and we just pray these things in your name. Amen. One thing, this is the start. We'll probably go into moral boundaries after this, but like your relationship with your girlfriends, or your relationship with your boyfriends, should start with a friendship and then move into it. I wouldn't just like find some random girl that you don't know and be like, hey, you want to start dating? Yeah, cool. Okay, fine. Let's start dating. What's my middle name? I don't know. Like, or what's your middle name? I don't know. But we'll go into that probably next. Bye.